Hi, my name is Furkhan Dandia. And one of the things we don't talk about when it comes to podcasting is the aspect of burnout and the mental health of podcasters. For example, we are so connected digitally that it's easy to fall into the comparison mindset and compare ourselves to others and see what's going on. What are they doing? What are their achievements? And feel like we're on this treadmill. When I first started as a podcaster, initially the plan was to just do audio podcasts and then promote them on social media. But then as the platforms became more sophisticated, you had to compete with others and try to do more things. Then transcriptions came in in order to differentiate yourselves in the saturated market, that is the podcasting world, you had to do transcripts. And then with YouTube taking over as one of the major platforms, the focus then shifted to video podcasts. And that requires a different level of effort. Some people will tell you to do the audio separately and do the video separately. So there's this constant need to keep up with the changing trends. And in order, again, to compete and differentiate yourself and make sure listeners are checking out your podcast, you have to set yourself apart. But unfortunately, that can come at a cost. And these are things that we're not talking about, especially on the burnout front. Now, burnout can be very pervasive and it doesn't often show up until it's too late. One of the things I've been able to research in terms of burnout is to find that it doesn't always have to be physical exhaustion. It can be mental or emotional. One of the things we find in society today is that we have to overwork to keep up, and often that can show up as perfectionism as well. Now, there's also a sense of pride and being able to brag about how many hours we're putting into something, even if it's in the podcasting world, it's all about performance. So, because we're falling into this comparison mindset, we become performative, which can also be a problem. Now, one of the things we don't fully appreciate with burnout is there is a cost of our performance, and that can show up in different ways. So, at some point, the more effort we put, it does not lead to extra performance, and the quality of our work can start deteriorating. So, as I was alluding to earlier, when we feel like we're overworking, we're putting in all this effort, that is coming at the cost of our performance, and people don't tend to realize that. Nor are we educated on this. So, what are some signs of burnout? Well, one of the first ones is it can start leading to anger and frustration. It can start impacting our relationships. It can start affecting our performance, like I said, and it can have some very significant negative consequences that we cannot come back from, especially if it's starting to impact our overall health. If we're starting to experience chronic pain, these things are all signs that we need to be mindful of. And unfortunately, these are the things that we can often just get used to and start dismissing and not recognizing fully. Again, it's important to be aware of the burnout piece, which then leads into mental health. Our ability to connect with others has its benefits, especially in the podcasting world, to be able to record remote episodes with people from all over the world. There are a lot of benefits in our ability to connect digitally, but the downside is now we have access to so much more information, which we didn't used to have in the past. We can see what everyone is doing, and that again can lead to that comparison mindset and start impacting people's mental health. A lot of the times we will tend to experience anxiety because we're so focused on the future. For example, someone may say, I need to get this many episodes out, I need to have this much content, and I need to constantly keep up with the trends. This can all be a source of anxiety. Alternatively, we can start focusing on the past and have some regrets or feel like maybe we could have done more with our podcast. And had we done more, we could have more listeners today, more downloads. So, again, focusing on the performative side, and that can have other issues. So there is this dance where we can experience significant mental health implications as well. The main goal is to be kind to yourself. And that's what something I would recommend and has worked really well for me. And I know that may sound cliche, but that's all you can do. Being able to focus in the present, making the most of it, really enjoying the process and being grateful for the opportunity you get whether it's recording solo episodes or having conversations with other people. What I found is, as much as I struggle sometimes to keep up with the trends at the end of the day, I need to bring myself to the present and the reason why I'm doing this to begin with. What do I actually get out of it? And focusing on my why, which in my case is to spread knowledge and information. And it's recognizing that I do get joy out of talking to people, exploring different topics, and sharing with the world. And that's a constant reminder that I'm not able to get too lost in the future and experience anxiety from time to time or focus on the past. It allows me to be more present, more grounded, and that's a daily practice, which is something I will talk about here. It's about remaining grounded and being in the present moment and reminding myself why I'm doing this and then experience that sense of joy. What is that daily practice for me? It's mindfulness. Why am I doing the things I'm doing? And then I can put that stress at ease. The biggest thing with burnout is it's this constant pressure we put on ourselves. We continue to increase the stress, and that's where our performance starts to fall down and we experience burnout. Now, another thing people will often experience with podcasting is, how do I keep my content fresh? And that can also be a source of anxiety because, again, if you're wanting to differentiate yourself and if you want to keep putting content out there, you need to have ideas. And that means you need to find guests, especially if you're doing an interview style podcast, or even if you're doing solo episodes. You need to make sure you're either bringing in guests or you're talking on topics that are relevant for the listeners and constantly fresh. One of the things that's really helped me is to continue to educate myself, to research, to read, and find topics that I'm interested in that I can explore with other people or talk about myself. Those are things that I'm thinking about, and it allows me to dive deeper into some of these topics with the guests and find guests that align with those topics as well. And then together we can have these conversations where we're diving into these topics and allowing myself to research it, to educate myself, so I can hold a conversation with another individual. By engaging in these conversations, I'm able to keep the content fresh, consistent, and constantly putting out new stuff for my listeners. So I'm not worried here about running out of ideas or losing that engagement. So that's the main thing there. One of the things we don't really talk about in this podcasting space is the mental health of the podcasters. Now, another thing we can do is expanding on this sense of mindfulness that around building a community and talking to other podcasters out there about how they're managing their stress and mental health. Is that even something that's at the forefront for individuals? And if there are certain tools and skills you can share, you can learn from each other. I know for me, community has been huge, not only as part of the podcasting world, because I do talk to other podcasters and learn from them, but in general for my mental health. Having that sense of community can be huge because, again, in the digital world, as much as we're connected, we've lost our sense of connection. And I know that sounds paradoxical, but that's what's really happened. The digital connection can only get you so far. There's something profound of an in-person connection or a one-on-one interaction, which is crucial. And we all need that from time to time. So that sense of community has really helped me in being able to manage my mental health, regular touch points with people, going to group work, reaching out to other individuals that I trust and that I can believe will mentor me. So I've set aside 3 or 4 mentors as well whom I connect with on a regular basis and talk about these things. That's allowed me to also test out some of the ideas I have, some thoughts. I have some things I might be struggling with and get an impartial, unbiased opinion and feedback that I can incorporate into my daily life and apply. Those are some things I would also recommend. And finally, I think the biggest thing is to find a healthy balance between your social media use and how this comparison mindset might be impacting you. Now, it's important to recognize that yes, in order to grow, you have to be able to set certain goals and aspire for more. But there are certain things I need to talk about here as well to share with people. Now, one of the things we don't necessarily address with social media is this physiological experience we have. And one of the things is the release of dopamine into our system. Now, as a species, we've evolved because our ancestors were able to seek out more and pursue this dopamine release, and that's how they survived. But in our current world, where the threats aren't the same, that's become a big problem. So you see a lot of times when you are chasing and trying to achieve more, and once you achieve it, you feel this sense of emptiness. and you don't feel content because now you feel like you have another goal to work towards. It's finding that healthy balance. Now, our body releases dopamine when we're in the pursuit of something, not when we achieve it. So that's why we can get addicted to these highs and lows of dopamine chases or spikes. It's recognizing that as well. So in the podcasting world, it's easy to fall into that trap where you may have just achieved something and now you feel like you need to do more. So you may have just started doing transcripts for your podcast, but now you need to take a step further and start focusing on video, and you need to make sure the quality of the video is great. It's if all the angles are right, you've got the right equipment. So you're constantly in that chase, and it's recognizing that. One of the things I've come to realize that we become addicted. And unfortunately, in society, we will often focus on some of the more obvious, visible forms of addiction, like substance abuse. But our social media use and our need to overwork and achieving things, those can be also very addictive. And those are things we don't necessarily talk about. And they can also impact our mental health. So the goal here is to recognize what are some of these behaviors that we're engaging in and why we're doing them. Doesn't mean we need to not set goals for ourselves. We don't need to strive for more. It's finding a healthy balance and recognizing what works for us and letting go. What's really worked for me is recognizing that I'm not going to get it all. I'm trying to do the best I can. And sometimes that means I have to let certain things go. I'm not going to be able to do video episodes for every podcast. I'm not going to be able to do transcripts for every episode. Does that mean I'm going to beat myself up because I didn't achieve those standards I've set for myself? No. It's again having that ability to give myself permission and have kindness and compassion for myself. When I'm not able to do certain things, letting go. One of the things we struggle with as people is able to give ourselves self-compassion. And this can be very helpful in managing our mental health, especially in this world where we're competing or falling into this comparison trap. So I really wanted to take this time to talk about these things. A topic that I don't see being covered and is becoming an issue. We're not paying a lot of attention to it, and I think we need to talk about it more. And I think at the same time, we need to build a community around this, especially for podcasters who are talking about various topics, but maybe that mental health piece or burnout side isn't being covered as much, and how we're falling into this comparison mindset. How there's always something more we can add to our product. How we need to constantly differentiate ourselves. These are the things that we need to talk about more, and something I wanted to bring to the forefront.